Hello, and thanks for clicking. I'm Scorpio Moon. This is my little home of nerd world I call Nerd Certified. Thanks for visiting me on it. Today I'm talking about the Mass Effect series with my good friend and colleague Jeff Burns, the creative mind behind a live-action web series called Super Knocked Up, about what happens when a supervillainess is, well, knocked up by her superhero arch nemesis and the hijinks that ensue. Also, Super Geeked Up, something that spun out of that, a weekly, geekly pop culture variety show. Think Whose Line Is It Anyway, but with audience interaction. You're going to find links for all of his shows below here, and we're going to touch base with the host in a little bit, talk some more about his projects. But first, I want to make sure that you all get what you clicked for. What we're talking about today are more or less the pros and cons of replaying Mass Effect now that the Legendary Edition is out. Jeff, let me actually pass this to you first. Have you ever replayed any RPGs, and like which ones, and why or why not?
Thanks so much for having me, man. So I was thinking about this earlier today. I don't think I've ever replayed an RPG, or probably any game, to be honest with you. Mass Effect Legendary Edition is probably the first time I attempted it, because you know what? I don't know. Yeah, just when I think you were talking to me in your Facebook message a little bit about this, but once I play something, I don't know. I just feel like I'm done. It was a great time. It was awesome, amazing, and I had a great experience. But it's hard to go back. I don't know. I just have a really hard time like getting back into playing the same thing again.
Yeah, I've pretty much never done it myself. I've replayed levels that I thought were particularly fun. Something I'm going to talk about it a bit. I've replayed whole things just to get like the right story. Like if I
Mm,
thought I missed a
yeah.
dialogue or missed an item or something, I've gone back and replayed for that. But long story short, for the viewers, a big part of like my whole point here is that I generally don't replay RPGs because I feel like the story's already been told. Especially just with how much time goes into so many of these too.
Yeah.
We're clocking at least like 60 hours, I think, at least for some of these games here per game. And that's, collecting the resources, having the conversations, exploring the maps, going back and redoing conversations to get them right, exploring the side content. There's so much that goes into all that. So I kind of don't want to do the work again in some ways too, but
Yeah.
that's the fun for me is really crafting the story more than anything else between me and the game developers and all the choices we choose. And I feel like a lot of painstaking time and detail has been put into all that already. It can be fun to to replay and see different options a little bit or try different things, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. Is it worth it to put all that time into the game again to replay any of them? So one of the first things that you would look at here, let's talk about the origin stories a little bit. When your very first thing, character creation, which by the way, I love a good character creation
Oh
night.
yeah.
You sit down with your snacks and your stuff, and you're like, okay, what do we look like? What's our backstory? Like, that's almost a whole night in itself, just getting everything pat.
It is. I mean, I spent so much time just on character creation. I love character creation.
Yeah, man, no, it's definitely it's the best. And so a lot of games, I just kind of see like, what's the game about? What's my character look like? And I kind of start building a head canon from there. Mass Effect, of course, gives you a lot to work with. Right off the bat, when you're choosing your origin, you've got the option to be Earthbound. It's like you were born on Earth, but you were part of a gang, and then kind of got into the army more or less to get away from that. Or you could be career. So like if it's a fantasy game, it's almost like the human noble. Like your father was in the service, your father's father before all that stuff, and you kind of came up with it. And then the last one was you were a colonist, and shit hit the fan on your colony. You got scooped up and saved, and eventually joined the service through
Mhm.
that route. And then your secondary options after that, there's the sole survivor, where your shepherd was the sole survivor of a mission that went tits up. And then I believe what were the other two? There
War
was
Hero was one.
yeah. So war hero was one. So kind of like you led a mission, but everyone kind of like came out, and you're like the big hero of the day. And I think the last one was just kind of like jerk,
I think
like you.
Destroyer. I think this because I looked it up before. I think they call it Destroyer or something negative. Yeah, something bad.
Yeah, more or less you're known for like battlefield triage and sending
Yeah.
people in to die, and that's just kind of like part of the story. And so, for mine, I went for Earthbound, the Earthbound origin, and I kind of like the way I headcanoned it and role played it was that she was actually arrested, my shepherd, like arrested for being part of this gang, and the judge kind of gave her this option to join the service, and we'll wipe your record clean. So as she kind of came up through the ranks, she still feels like, joining the service, like, kind of like saved her life and set her straight, but you couldn't really take the street out of the girl. And then she was sole survivor, so she had seen a lot of shit and kind of came to be like, really tough that way. She was tough enough already having come from the gang, but
Yeah.
that informed like my entire game. When we talk about Renegade, Paragon, and all that, when it comes to the choices you make, most of what I usually did was like, if you had a chance to be a jerk, I probably took it.
Okay.
That was just fun to me, kind of like let loose in that way. But I still went for like, the more or less, good choices when it came to things. I didn't exterminate the Rachni. I tried for peace between the Gath and the Quarians. I cured the Genophage. Most of the big stuff. I was always trying to be the hero, but in a dirty way. If there was a messy way to do it, I'd probably take the messy route for the fun.
Gotcha. So that's interesting though, and what you talked about. So when you created your character, you actually came up with like more backstory than what they gave you, right? It sounds like.
Yeah. The role playing is just so much a part of it.
And is that you
absolutely.
usually do that, like when you when you create a character for a RPG?
Oh yeah, pretty much any game. Any game. I like to read all the little preambles and whatever they have to say about the game, and I just kind of like let it simmer overnight, basically. Just kind of see like almost like a Rorschach test, like what comes to my mind first, like what kind of ideas do I bounce off of that, and then I get the head canon. So when I make my decisions, like whatever decision comes up, I try and think, based on how I've built my character, how are they going to make this decision, whether it's a dialogue or like a character choice, and that's again like a big part of the fun for me.
Cool.
So let's hear yours, man. Like, what was your shepherd's backstory?
So I did Spacer. So she grew up in space, on ships, and war hero. So yeah. So I guess I went, with a very like she was pretty badass and hero. And here's the thing. I always do this in games. I always choose Paragon. Like I was full Paragon the whole way. So part of that is extension of, I think, my own stuff, right? Like what would I do in these situations? Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time, I don't know, being like making those. I know I get it. A lot of people like it's fun, right? To do that stuff. Like one time I did a Renegade thing, but I had a save and I went back and did it just because I wanted to see what would happen. And it was a Mass Effect 2. I don't remember who the guy was, but it's something if you did Renegade, you threw the guy out the freaking window. And you actually like kicked or punched him out a glass window and he plummeted to his death. And this guy was a real asshole. So I was like, all right, well, that was cool that I got to see that. But then I still went back and did the Paragon. But I don't know, for some reason that one I need to see what happens to this jerk. Like if I do the Renegade. But besides that, yes, I'm all Paragon. Trying to be nice,
No, I like that. Again, I think there's even a quote from one of the game devs at some point. They're like, this isn't like KOTOR where you can end like Jedi or Sith. Like, you're the hero. At the end of the day, your character is the hero of the story, and sometimes that limits the choices a little bit, which is a whole other thing in video games. But no, I like it, man. I like it.
Well, it's how you right. It's how do you get there as the hero, right? Like what path do you take?
Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna get to the ending of this game in a little bit. But with a lot of these games, it's really more about how you get there than versus where you actually get. Do you choose like more technological options, or are you a mauler, or like a mage, or a biotic as they call it in here? Like there's plenty of ways to beat the game. It's not really a matter ever of like if you're gonna beat the game. Like at no point did I think to myself, oh man, I'm not gonna beat Mass Effect. Shucks, this level just has me. Like
Right.
It's always about how do you do it.
Yeah.
Which is where the storytelling comes in. So do you think then if you were to replay Mass Effect for the Legendary Edition, would you choose any of those different?
Well, I can tell you because I got Legendary Edition when it first came out, the day it released, and I began playing it, so I went through all this stuff again, right? The character creation, so the choices I made as back as I can remember, I made the same background choices to start. I did do this time. I created a different Shepherd. I was still FemShep. I'm always female protagonist if I can. And FemShep is like iconic for me. My first FemShep though was I actually really liked what I designed, but it was a white Shepherd with red hair, short red hair. So this time I went more with like an Asian American feel to the character. She had short, dark hair. So totally different look for this shepherd, still femshep. Um, and just because I was trying to like, well, let me do something different at least, right? Just because I don't want to make the exact same character, even though basically I think most of my decisions, I mean, I can't remember every decision I made, right? Every dialogue choice and stuff. There's so many throughout the game, but most of them are probably quite similar. Um, I will say though, I have not played very much, even though it came out in what mid-May, I think. And part of it goes to what you're saying, right? Like I was enjoying it. I was really impressed by the graphical upgrades. They did a really nice job on Mass Effect 1 in particular, which was the oldest one. Um, it was just, I don't know, man. It was like, it was tough to keep me coming back though and going, right? Because I was like, well, it's cool, but I've done all this, like you said. Like I've played through all these things already. So it doesn't have that new freshness, right? Like when the Mass Effect first came out, it's still that trilogy I put as maybe top of my all time video game list, top 5 at least. Um, and that was like I had to play that every day. Like I was coming back like, oh my god, I can't wait to play Mass Effect tonight. I just needed to see what happened, but now I know what happens, right? So, I mean, yes, there are things you could change, right, based on decisions that do change it. But overall, like you said, you're still getting to the same point at the end. I mean, based on the different ending, of course, too. But
Yeah, and I don't think I would really necessarily want to pick another origin either. I sort of picked the one that worked for me. It inspired the way that I played the game. I don't think, I don't know if it'd be worth it to replay, what's 3 times 6, like 180 hours worth of video game again. To see like some minor choices change, basically. But I'd still probably do a lot of the same things. Like I'd still kind of be, the good guy, as I put it, but get there in a messy way. I don't think I'd really want to do that any differently. And so I don't think like picking a different origin would really work with that. And if I did pick an origin differently to play it a different way, like you said, that sense of urgency is kind of gone. Like the need, like, oh, I've got to beat this level. I've got to do another thing. We've got to. This genophage ain't going to cure itself.
right,
These
we got to
Reapers
find
are
out
gonna.
what's going to happen, right? Like,
Yeah, so you're missing that lack of urgency, and I don't know if I could play Mass Effect like lazily, like just log in and like play an hour for fun, relive it, and then pick up in a week or like just pick it up later. Like I don't know if that would really work for me, but
yeah. Another another thing I was thinking about this today. I kind of relate to my view on films because, as you mentioned, I'm also a filmmaker. So some obviously people, right? They go back and start mucking around with their films, and obviously you're probably thinking George Lucas. People watching this, and by the way, I'm actually a big defender of Lucas. I love Lucas. He got way too much shit. I think he's given us so much amazing stuff, but I would have preferred him not do that with Star Wars. But it's his stuff. He can do whatever he wants. But here's my point. I will never go back and start changing my films because I believe that is where I was at that point in time as a filmmaker, and that's the best I could do, right? And now I'm going to move forward and try to do something better where I'm currently at. So it's kind of like I was looking at to Mass Effect. When I played Mass Effect and that Shepard I created, that is for me that's Shepard. Everybody Shepard's right, but for me that's Shepard. There is no other Shepard. That's Shepard. Every choice I made at that point in time was who I was. And for me, like, it's almost like a movie, right? Like for me, that was the movie. And I think Mass Effect is the closest thing to like a sci-fi epic movie in terms of in a video game that we've seen, particularly as a trilogy. So to me, like that's the way the story exists for me, which is probably why it's so hard for me to say like, why would I make different choices? Like that is the story to me. Like it's in my brain as just like the original Star Wars trilogy is in my brain, and I don't want anything different about that, right? So I think that's another reason why like it's like you said, not as urgent or not as exciting for me to replay this.
and that's actually a big part of why, of all my friends and colleagues, I really wanted to bring you on for this one. As a filmmaker, you've got plenty of experience, crafting story, which is what so much of playing an RPG is about. Crafting story as you go along this. I really appreciate you for that. And yeah, canon, I think is really important to us as nerds and geeks and sci-fi, fantasy fans, etc. And so, once you've got, your canon shepherd and you set your story in stone, yeah, it can be fun to see a couple of different things, but I don't know if you want to do that. You set the canon for a reason, and like you said, you've had a chance to throw someone out a window just for kicks, then go back and replay it. Like we've kind of seen how things can play out differently with a lot of those already too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, how much the canon was for me with that character. I was probably only one of the few people that's ever happened to. I'm thinking because I don't think anybody else really knows what I'm talking about. So obviously you could carry your saves over from each game, right? And so
Hmm.
you could port your character from 1 to 2 to 3. 1 to 2 was great. When I tried to get my character from Mass Effect 2 to 3, I got an error message saying something about, oh, this character type we can't bring her in. Like there was a certain few things that had glitches in them, certain ways you did characters apparently. Um, so it would not bring my character in, and I was so pissed off. Like I was like, no, that's my Shepherd. Are you freaking kidding me? So I booted up two, took a screenshot with my phone of my Shepherd, and I looked at it as I made the character in 3 because I was determined to match it as closely as possible because the character creator had changed a little bit. Like I couldn't do exactly what my character used to be like. I got damn close, um, and but it was weird. But again, like because that was my Shepherd, right? Like no, I'm not just going to randomly create a new Shepherd. I needed to create it I needed to create her, like as close as I could get.
Yeah, yeah, and that is a nerd certified level of commitment right there.
I spent a lot of time in 3 creating that character.
No, I love that, and I think I kind of know what you mean, at least to some extent. I remember, yeah, first two games, your Shepherd more or less baseline looks the same. We're about to talk about the genders, but I played a fem Shep too. Ironically for me, they always talk about how the male Shep was the more promoted one when the games first came out, but for some reason, like whenever I heard about Mass Effect, thought about it, like I always pictured that redheaded fem Shep. Maybe I just saw different advertising. I don't know, but that's what I went for when I created mine. Was a pretty typical looking redheaded femshep, and then all of a sudden in game 3, she's got this like strawberry blonde look going. Like instead of redhead, like they kind of like switched it up, and like some of the hair and like it was a little like different, a little off, like not completely the same. And this is kind of again one of the reasons I'm not as big on replaying it. Like I kind of just rolled with it to some extent. It's like, well, she doesn't look too different. It's like some time has lapsed. Maybe she needed like a new do or like kind of redo herself a little bit. Like, and I kind of like played it off like that. Like, okay, some time has passed. She's been through some shit. She's trying to like restart her life, and now she looks a little bit different. And I just kind
Yeah.
of went with it. And it's those kind of experiences though that come with it that really only come like with the first time and when it's not quite so perfect and like there's that little bit of jank that is kind of like heartwarming about it that you kind of look back and say, okay, so this and that and yeah, so now it's more uniform, which is one of the big changes, I guess. But I don't know if that's necessarily as big of a good thing as they kind of sell it off as.
As in, like, you mean the characters more uniform across all the games? Like how she looks, right? You mean, or he looks?
Oh yeah, the character, like you mentioned, like some of the visuals we're gonna talk about in a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
the game just looks more like homogenous
right.
throughout all three of them.
That's true. You're right. But I mean, which is totally fine, and that makes sense for the Legendary Edition. I mean, but you're right. That's part of the experience, right? Like games evolve, new technology comes, and I mean, so not only did they look better, right? But also just the creatives, the creative directors, the writers, whoever else, right? They come up with new ideas and they also evolve as creatives. So that's part of the process, I think, right? Playing them when they originally out is going seeing how the game grows and evolves. Um, just like movies or books, right? When you're reading a series of books, how do those evolve? How does the writer changing how they tell a story?
Yeah, sometimes those little margins, those little imperfections can kind of make it in some ways. I'm not saying it's a bad thing,
Yeah.
to sort of clean it up a little bit, but it was just kind of my experience there. But moving on then, so we mentioned the genders of our Sheps here, the genders here. Would you even consider playing male Shep instead of fem Shep?
Nope. Um, I mean, maybe for like a nanosecond I did. Again, here's like if I have the choice, always female protagonist. I'm always choosing that. Um, and that's why I write. Like if you mentioned Super Knocked Up or I've been writing a lot of stuff for Amazon now. All female protagonists. That's just what I like to do. That's what I like to play. The so the only so the one interest though I was thinking about this why I might do a male is because of romance stuff, which I know you mentioned in your when you sent me in advance. Like I would have been very interested to romance Ashley, like and see what that was all about, because you couldn't do that with FemShep, right? Ashley was only into male Shep, because I really did. Yes, I really dug Ashley a lot. Like I was so excited when I saw her in the game three because I don't think I knew she was coming back until I saw her in game when I was playing. Um, I remember I like literally got excited. I was like, "Holy shit, it's Ashley! This is awesome!" Um, and I think you one who says you were the one of the few people who chose Caden. You feel or something, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's one thing I would have. And I think you said this to me too earlier. That's one choice I would not mind doing differently. Mainly just because I actually really like Caden and Ashley, and there's no choice in a video game that I've struggled with more than that choice between who I was going to save. And I'm no joke. I always remember this. I was in my room. I spent literally 20 minutes with the game paused, trying to decide who I was going to save. Like I've never thought this much about a decision in a video game before. That's how impossible it was for me to decide that.
yeah. No, good point, man. Good point. And I've played a lot of the Walking Dead Telltale games too, and they don't really give you that option. Like when you have to choose one character or another, like the clock is
The
ticking, like
clock
a little
ticks,
bar
yeah.
goes down. Yeah, like there's no time for that. You have to really like revisit and go back if you wanted to think about it there. So yeah, so kind of rolling those two topics together, then. Yeah, the femship really is the more iconic one to me. I can't think of a lot of reasons to pick the male ship instead. Just the voice actress, of course, for femship is just so great too. Like
Jennifer Hale,
yeah, yeah, no, obviously she's been around the block when it comes to a
perfect.
lot of these RPGs.
She's amazing.
Big fan of her.
I will say that, by the way, Mark Meir, who does Mailship, he's been on Super Geeked Up. He did Super Geeked Up with me a few years ago in Dragon Gun. He's an awesome guy, super talented, very funny. So he's great. This is nothing against him. Obviously, he's awesome. I like Femship.
Oh yeah, no, glad you snuck that in.
Yeah,
Definitely nothing
and it's
against Mark.
interesting though. When I talk to people, it seems like usually I hear like, "Oh yeah, I played Femship." Like you're right because they marketed male at first, but maybe that's why they kind of changed it for three a little bit, right? Because they found out
Yeah.
how many people were playing Femship.
Yeah, no, very strong possibility. I know she's a much bigger part of the marketing this time around for the Legendary Edition too.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if there's really anything about it that would make me choose male ship instead. And I think aside from certain dialogue things that come up, whether you pick male or female, your game experience is not drastically different. But again, like I promised, kind of rolling two things in together here. Probably if I was to play male ship, would be to see the different romance options. That's a big part of a lot of the role playing games. I think a lot of the best, well, not the best ones, so all the ones that I like a lot, at least give you some kind of like romance option in there. It's another big thing to role play and another
Yeah,
big thing to play with, and
I love it.
you definitely get some different options. Obviously, if you pick male ship. And by the way, when it comes to that in general, I do like how when it comes to a lot of the BioWare games, they have your straight characters, your gay characters, your bisexual characters, and that's not all the sexualities. Obviously, there's all sorts of different classifications, but I like that they're not going to give into the temptation to make any character romanceable. Like some characters, like they have their limits. Like it's almost kind of like a little treatsy on a little bit of a wokeness when it comes to consent, basically. Like you can't just have your way with any character. Like
Hmm.
some of them it's just a hard no. I don't know if that's what they'd intended or not, but just like
Yeah,
the way I look at it, I think that's kind of cool.
yeah. No, I mean, I think BioWare is like just about the best at doing that kind of first romance thing, but also just like giving everyone kind of a choice about who do you want to be as a character and giving you different options for who you can romance in terms of your sexuality and gender orientation, all that stuff. I think they're awesome at it. And doing it early on too. Doing that
Yeah,
stuff.
no, you're right. A lot of this goes pretty far back too. Yeah, so they've definitely done right by us there, and that's the main thing. Yeah, this is when it comes to choices, probably like you said, one of the only ones I would maybe play the game differently for would be to change the Caden versus Ashley thing. And again, like I made my decision for my reason. I always remembered Ashley telling me this story about how it was like her father or grandfather was one of the only ones to like surrender a battle during their first contact war, and she felt she had this like legendary shame passed down onto her that she was trying to make up for. So like me thinking like like a soldier type, I thought to myself, well, if she dies in this battle, maybe to her she'll know going out that she kind of like redeemed her family name
Interesting.
in some way.
That's very interesting, actually. I can see that.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. So that's why I chose that. I mean, was there any particular reason you made your decision for Caden versus Ashley?
So I wish I could. I don't fully remember all the story. I mean, so Caden was this very powerful biotic, but he was that certain kind of biotic, right? That caused really could cause huge problems. I think psychologically or other stuff, right, in your brain. Is that right?
Yeah, he had a lot of sob stories about things that went wrong in biotic training and his
Yeah.
harsh upbringing with
Right,
that.
and
Yeah.
actually had her thing like her family, right, and stuff. I don't think I can remember why. Like I said, it took me forever. So I was attached to both characters. I obviously liked both characters. Um, I can't. I wish I could remember. It's just been, and I haven't gotten to that part again in the new games. So in the Legendary Edition, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I know it took forever. I will say, however, there is actually, except it would take me forever. I would have to play through the entire series again. Because the one thing I would change is who I wind up with romantically at the end. I think you know that. I said this on SGU, right? Who I can't even remember who is the one in Mass Effect 3 who's by the world map, the map, galactic map that you can romance.
You got stuck with Toothbrush Girl.
What?
She was always on about her mechanical toothbrush, her sonic
Okay,
toothbrush.
what? Do you remember her actual name? Or we're just gonna call it Toothbrush Girl.
Samantha Trainer?
So, yes, good memory. You're good. So I was with Liara in the first game, and you couldn't have Liara in the second game, right? Because she was doing something else. She wasn't part of the main crew. So then I went with Garrus, and both those things were awesome. And the Garrus dialogue is hilarious about romancing him. And then I was like, okay, well, so I'm going to choose Liara or Garrus in 3, and I was going to choose Liara. That was my goal. But then there was this one time to hook up with Samantha, and here's the thing: in the other games, at least my memory is, you could kind of like, oh, maybe I'll try out a couple people and then I'll decide who I'm going to be with. But in this game, as soon as one time I hooked up with her, that was it. The game just locked me into that. And that I was even more mad about that than about my character who didn't port it over. Because I was like, what in God's name are you talking about? Like, and I obviously didn't know this until hours and hours later, right? I figured I was always going to have a chance to get back with Liara or something. And that didn't happen. That really blew. But I didn't. Yeah, I don't know. So that is a good motivator. I don't know if it'll actually motivate me to play through the whole thing again, but I would like to see what happens with either Liara or Garrus at the end, beginning with them. Who did you wind up with at the end?
Yeah. This is I did a similar thing. So I ended up mostly with Liara in the first game, and then second game, Garrus started really growing on me. Actually, it was funny. Second game starts and you have to kind of recruit a lot of your crew all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, God damn, I really miss Garrus. And then he's like off being Archangel. I was like, oh, I really miss that mofo. And then they start talking about once you finally get him on, using sex as a way to charge up or charge down basically before a battle. And Garrus just really charmed the pants off my femme chef. I think they kind of want Liara to sort of be like the canon romance or whatever, the way the game is set up and advertised. But the femme chef Garrus romance, I think, is just really one of the best in the whole game. They have so many cute, funny, and sweet moments. And again, I mean, I didn't play too many romances, but I've watched other ones on YouTube and stuff and kind of seen how they play out. No, I really, really, really liked that one.
Is that what you went with number 3? You went with Garrus?
Yeah, the number 3 I went with Garrus. Yep.
Good choice. Well, yeah, no, you're right. They have so many. It's interesting. It's like war moments, but in kind of awkward, funny moments. But also, even in my case where I did not wind up with Garrus in the end, there's these wonderful friendship, war buddies moments, right, between Shepard and Garrus, which I love. Just like the thing, I think it's in 3, right? I don't know. They're like shooting things, marksman. Mm-hmm. They're having a marksman competition, right? And they're talking to each other. It's so good writing and acting. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. And you get the chance to either let him win the shooting competition, let him win, or to actually just go ahead and beat him. Yeah, no, that stuff is it's really, really a lot of fun. And that's the kind of thing. If that happened to me in the third game, I don't care how many hours I would have had to replay to go back and get my story right and get my canon set.
I considered it. I considered it. I don't know. I guess at that time, though, I was just like, no, I invested so many hours. I can't. Maybe I should have. I don't know. Well, I have another chance, though, if I want to. So I'm starting fresh.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, no, you basically like you play chess with her and take a shower, then you're like locked in, like bam, like maybe just because
Right,
she's
and
not
then
as big
then
of a
her
character.
toothbrush is in your place or something, right?
Yeah, another Sonic tooth. Who looks at a toothbrush and says this needs to be more Sonic? Doctor Who joke I had to sneak in there
Yes,
for
that
you
was
guys,
nice.
but
No,
yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so if I was going to go ahead and replay a whole game or even the whole series, maybe I think that would be. I think that's one of the biggest effects is who you choose there. I mean, you can shoot Rex, the Krog in the one game, and kind of take him out.
Mm.
But and then you lose that character. You know, for the most part, like if you do exterminate the Rachna, like a new one shows up, or if you kill this Krogan or that Soren, like another one shows up. Like they always kind of like replace them. The game goes on to begin with, but who you choose, Kaden or Ashley, that's a whole character that you're missing out for the whole rest of the series now.
Yeah, no, you're right. And again that's in the first game. Um, is that so? Kate and Ashley, and obviously Rex can die. Are those the only ones like really can you have decisions over about like who the main your crew characters who die?
Well, I mean, you can lose the Solarian based on how you cure the genophage or not. When
Morden,
it comes
is
up
that
later,
right?
yeah, Solus,
Yeah,
Morden Solus in three.
yeah.
You can lose him. I mean, I don't know who this actually would happen to or why, but I guess technically on the suicide mission in the second game, you can lose main characters. I mean, if you do lose
Oh,
anyone, why you would not go back and replay it and fix it is beyond me.
right,
But I mean, technically, you might have lost people then.
right. And I know we who was the in two and he comes back in three. He was like a green kind of guild guy. He was an assassin, I think, or sharpshooter.
I want to say Thane was his name.
Thang?
Thane?
Oh, Thane, right? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, the green assassin guy.
Yeah. I mean, I know you have no control over this, but like his like scene about when you last see him and he's dying. Oh my god, man, I was crying. Like that was so poignant.
Oh, yeah, no, that reminds me. Yeah, his illness and all that. Yeah,
It's
no, they
basically like a
did put her
cancer
through it.
type illness. Um, but they did a really good job, actually. I think in that third game of like kind of letting you kind of have these moments with all the characters, right? Some kind of I don't know closure moment, right, or like lasting, which was very nice.
Oh yeah, very, very super character driven, which is why this is probably one of the biggest things I would maybe do it for is like, I'm missing that whole character of Ashley. Like, I wonder, how worth it would be. Because I could definitely see like another version of the scenario where maybe I'll look at the decision and say, okay, well, Ashley has this like, chip on her shoulder about, her family lineage and her respect. And also maybe I say, okay, Ashley, you can't die here. You still have more to prove. I'm saving
Hmm.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this, because so when I played, Ashley's in the first game and then she comes back in the third. Is that what happens with Caden? He's not in the second game and then he comes back in the third, or no?
Yeah, more or less the same thing. You don't really
Yeah.
see them much through the second game, then they come back in the third game and they're a Spectre. Well, actually, I wasn't the biggest fan of Caden, so all of a sudden I see him and he's a Spectre, and I'm like, they'll let anyone in this fucking club, I guess, won't they? We're that desperate now. It's the end of times. Sure, Caden, you're a Spectre now. Why not?
I have actually. I did get to that point. I'm just a little bit past that in the Legendary Edition where the Shepherd gets made a Spectre. Um, so I'm still very early, but that I mean, the first time that happened, like that was awesome. I mean, it's still awesome the second time, but it's like, yeah, fuck, I'm a Spectre. God damn right. Like I don't know. Like that was just like Spectres were like the coolest thing I thought. Like and to be the first human Spectre, that was cool.
Yeah, no, and then the politics and everything they put in there, they really crafted a really good story. But like you said, very, very, very character driven.
Yeah, which is my character driven stuff is my favorite things. Like I always choose character over story driven stuff, so that's probably why I love it so much.
Yeah. So with that being said, that may or may not be worth it there. But let's just talk about some of the mechanical stuff then, as far as what they've actually done to this game, as far as the Legendary Edition. You touched on the graphics and such. So they basically, they cleaned it up more or less, made it homogenous. They kind of lightened a lot of things up more than anything else. And when you actually look at the views of the game, like there's like more lighting in it. It's like even like the stormy worlds and stuff are just like a little bit brighter.
Mm.
They made it look kind of the same throughout. When it comes down to what they actually changed, though, I feel like a lot of what they really did was just kind of make it easier. Mostly, the first game they changed the most as far as cleaning it up. So the first game they've made like and I've read a lot about this, like when it comes to like the sniper rifles and stuff, they've given them a little more control, a little more focus, and
Mm.
recalculated how points are done. So there's a little less fly with it. It's a little more spot on with that. The Mako doesn't have as many one death kills when you're driving around in that thing.
Yeah, it's easier to control it right now.
And it should be a little less janky too.
Yeah.
Yeah, was the idea, but most of it comes down to that. Like all the little nitpicks they made are mostly kind of making the game easier. From what I've read, and again, that kind of comes back to this idea of, well, I almost kind of wear like that like a badge that I played it the first time back when you touch one little piece of fire with the ship and you're dead, and you had to focus a little more on some of these things. So, I mean, for replayability, if that's your thing, I think those effects are probably good. Like if you watch do I want to replay these games? They've probably made it a lot more replayable by doing all this, but I kind of feel like they just more or less made it like easier. I mean, have you heard much about this? How do you feel about all that?
I mean, I heard about it. I'll be honest with you, like I didn't like pay super huge attention to that aspect. I mean, the graphics is kind of like what I was most interested in. Like I wanted to see, okay, how much better does it look? And it does. Like number one, I think definitely there's a significant improvement. I mean, though I always thought Mass Effect games looked awesome for their time, right? Even today still. The mechanical stuff. Here's the thing. I never really had a problem with the first Mass Effect game. I mean, yes, the Mako is janky. Yes, absolutely, it is. But outside of that, like I thought it played really well. Like some people I know remember complained about, I think the shooting mechanics or certain things, and I actually didn't totally like all the changes they made in number 2 at the time. I kind of preferred 1, but I was like, whatever, it's fine. Either way works. It's fine. I don't know. People a lot of times like to, make all these little nitpick things that for me, it's like, it's working totally fine. So, I mean, I haven't so far, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know, just by playing it, I couldn't tell you what was, except what you just told me. I couldn't tell you really what was different and what was not the same because I haven't got to the Mako yet. So just going around shooting stuff, I mean, I'm sure it is probably a little more accurate and easier, right? But I wouldn't have known that unless someone told me, like you, or I read it somewhere, So it still kind of feels like it plays the same more or less to me. Maybe part of it is the most recent one I played was 3. And so if it's similar to more or less 3, then like that's kind of just what I'm going off of because that's in my muscle memory most recently. I don't know. Yeah, the mechanical stuff that would not make me say like, oh, I got to play this just because they fixed the Mako, right? Like, well, I drove the Mako, like you said. I did it. It was okay, maybe it was a little annoying, but whatever. Like you do it, right?
Yeah, like I said, you'll wear it like a badge. I went through it. I beat that game when it was that frustrating.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad I played it when it first came out. I mean, first off, though, highly recommend if you've not played Mass Effect. Like, Legendary Edition is great. Great. You can get all 3 games for the price of 1. It's going to look great, right? Like, actually jealous you have this awesome experience to go through now for the first time, right? But yeah, like you said, it's kind of nice to be like there when it first comes out, right, and get to play it.
Yeah, so I don't know as far as like selling points. If it's really enough, like okay, you improve some of the graphics and such, and cleaned up some of the things back in the game. But I don't know if that's enough of a selling point for me. And I mean, look, guys, like I don't want this whole video to seem like, oh, I'm just shitting on the Legendary Edition. Why even bother? Like, no, trust me, I look forward to every N7 day, every year. Every November 7th, I'm like, what news is going to come out? Are they going to tease a new game? Is there going to be something going on? Like, I'm really all about it. Like, and if you bought the Legendary Edition for the physical, you've got a very nice thing on your shelf right there.
I did buy the physical. I like having physical stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that's probably one of the main reasons is like just to have something to celebrate. Because the frustrating things about video games and trying to like with all the websites I've worked on trying to cover video game news and such is it's just so slow and you get so little. They announce a new game, you're maybe playing it 4 or 5 years later by the time it's actually all come out, and even then it takes probably like 6 months of patches and updates after it's first been released until it's really even close to finished.
Yep. I know. It's that's why I like sometimes when some guys' games have flown under my radar and I'll read about it and they're like, oh, it's coming out next month. I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. Great. Thank God I didn't know about this game because I didn't have to wait for 5 years. But yeah, no, again, like I said, I think they did a really great job with the Legendary Edition. It's more just like you've been saying, it's tough for me to replay. I thought if there was going to be anything I could replay, it was Mass Effect, but even that's been tough to kind of get because of the lack of uniqueness or the new freshness of it. But I mean, I know tons of people love replaying games. They replayed the original Mass Effect when it was right. I think they're gonna love this one. And if you're new, 100%, man, like this is great, great to jump on board now and play it.
Yeah, so look, if you're watching and feel inclined to comment on the video, one thing I would love to hear from anyone is just, like if you are replaying this game or any other RPG, like, why? Like what value you're getting out of it, what the most fun part is. Because I'm definitely looking, like I said, I love Mass Effect. I'm almost trying to talk myself into it more than anything else. Like, I want to walk around the Normandy again. I think maybe next to the Enterprise D, like the Normandy feels more like home to me than any other spaceship. I mean, probably the nearly 200 hours I spent walking around those halls. Even just like loading up the game again, just walking around those halls like that, it really feels like home. I really love the Normandy. I love Mass Effect. So I'm always looking for a reason to either get back into it or for something else to come out of it. Like, I'm always on the lookout for something. But with that being said, before we talk about some of the other fun stuff, let's look at kind of the granddaddy of it all. What this all is going to come down to: is it worth to replay it and choose a different ending for the third game or for the whole series? Jeff, why don't you lead us off here? What ending did you pick and why? And would you ever think about changing it?
So I had to review earlier today just to see what they were all called. So I chose the synthesis ending, just kind of like the middle,
okay.
the middle
Yeah, the
ground.
green one.
Um, so where I guess like they kind of came like the AI stuff and the humans kind of merged in some kind of cooperative way. Um, here's the thing. I was actually happy with that ending. I thought like that's a cool ending. This is another thing where like people went crazy. And by the way, look, if you didn't like the ending, okay, fine. Um, but I don't know. This is another one of my little things I have about. Um, BioWare is super. That was super awesome of them that they created another ending. Right? They created a downloadable content ending, which I've never played, by the way, because I was satisfied with the ending they gave me. Actually, maybe you can tell me though a little bit more about if you've done it and what happens. But I actually wish BioWare didn't do that in a way, because again, I'm going back to the filmmaker thing, right? And any kind of artists create, including video game creators, they create what they believe is a work of art, and then they put it out there, and you, me, and everybody else plays it, right? And we all have different reactions to it. Like me, I like the ending. Other people hated it. Other people maybe didn't care so much, right? Or in the middle. But we had reactions. Art is supposed to create reactions in people and feelings. And just because you didn't like it, does not mean the artist goes and changes what their story was. I believe artists stick to their stories, and they say, this is what we wanted to tell. And if you didn't like that end, okay, that's cool. But this is art. This is what this is. It isn't about we're trying to please everyone. Like you cannot please everyone. Some people, and the new one, other people may say, oh, no, that's terrible now. Why'd you do that, right? So like, I don't know. Like I'm not, even though I think BioWare was crazy nice that they wanted to please the fans, but I actually believe you can go too far with that and almost giving fans too much power to say like dictate what should happen. I don't believe that's good for art, I guess is what I'm saying. Art meaning in very broad canvassing, storytelling, movies, video games, writing books, whatever it is. Sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent from what you were asking me. But that's something I really feel strongly about. Like that drives me nuts sometimes. That people, particularly on social media now, right? They're always up in arms about everything. And it's always the super negative ones usually that get, well, and there's certain mechanics of social media, what that happens, it gets pushed to the top, right? And it's like people like me and other people I talk to who really like it. We're just like, well, we liked it. We didn't make a big stink about it because we liked it. But then like all these other, it's the people who really complain that always get kind of catered to, which I don't think is also the best for, anyway, I'll shut up now.
Well, no. I've got a lot of thoughts on that I'll try and remember. I'll touch on in a second.
Sorry, that was a lot. Synthesis, though, was my ending. That was the question you asked.
Yeah, so you chose synthesis. Now, why'd you choose that one? And what'd you think about? Did any other decision appeal to you that you want to see what happens?
Not real. I mean, because I reread them today, like on IGN. So one of them was like you destroy all Geth and any other AI, and Edie gets destroyed. It said. The other one was like Shepard takes control, like she becomes an AI and takes control of the Geth, I guess, right? Or the
Yeah, or
Raptor?
the Reapers. Yeah,
The
you're basically
Reapers,
your
sorry, the
choices are
Reapers, sorry.
yeah, yeah. You're basically your choices were the green ending as they're color coded, which people make fun of, but whatever. So the green ending was the synthesis ending, where you basically stop the war. You find out that this is just an endless cycle of AI versus non-artificial intelligence, and we've been synthetics and non-synthetics have been at war for like forever, going over and over in cycles. This is your chance to break those cycles by just uniting everything as like one thing. I think that's kind of like the good ending, as they would put it, is uniting everyone. And then the red ending is you kill anything artificial by doing so. So yeah, you kill the Reapers, you save the day, but yeah, Edie dies, any Geth alive would die, any synthetic artificial intelligence, they're all dead. Only organics live. And then the last one, or the third one, or there's actually technically four. Getting into we
Yeah.
talked about the changes. The last one was control. Basically, you find out that you can control the Reapers, and you just kind of like you sacrifice yourself. You have to die, and you're like uploaded as a consciousness into the Reapers mainframe or whatever, and you can control them, and you'll fly away, and the galaxy kind of goes on as is. Are your main three. The last one is you can technically, if you try and shoot that little kid, then you just die.
Okay, gotcha.
But they added that in there at some point, where if you try and just take shots and kill the thing, you just die and the game ends.
Wait, so it does. I thought. I'm not remember this well enough. I thought Shepard always dies. Does she not always die in all the endings?
And this is part of, to answer your question, what it gets into with what they added with the DLC. For the most part, honestly, all they really did was add extra stuff. Like there's like a longer epilogue to your choices. Like the choices are still the same at the end of the game.
Oh,
They
they
just
are.
added
Okay.
on more epilogue, basically.
Hmm.
But yeah, if you choose the red ending, for example, though, yeah, because the green one you have to sacrifice yourself to power the machine. I think basically
Yeah. Okay.
the
That's
the
what I
blue
thought.
one you sacrifice yourself because you become them. The red one, if you have enough war assets and galactic readiness, there's a little scene where they show rubble and like your hand kind of like shakes out of it, like Shepard
Hmm.
lives.
That's
Like
in
you don't
the
see her right.
that's in the DLC kind of stuff, or no?
I think by the time I actually played the game, I had some of that installed.
Okay.
So I'm not 100% sure, to tell the truth. If you have to have the DLC to see the fact that Shepard can live,
Hmm.
but I think it's
Interesting.
implied that you at least could live. Like you're
Okay.
not definitely going to die if you pick the red ending. It's just all the tech people are going to die. I think like the gateways and stuff, the Mass Effect relays, like a lot of them, like catch fire and burn and stuff. If you choose that, like tech takes a serious hit, but it's not directly so that you have to die. If you choose that ending, just you've got to have a lot of points built up. Which before we pass it back, that was a big part of the third game to me. Is I mentioned how long it takes games to even be ready after they come
Hmm.
out. So I did not play Mass Effect 3 when it first came out. Like
Oh,
I'd
really?
been around this game. I've been around this before. I was like, nope. Like I'm waiting at least a couple months. Like let them work out some of the kinks. And even then, like if you play a game when it first comes out, you can take advantage of some of those. Some of the kinks they haven't worked out right. Like with the Dragon Age Inquisition, there are a lot of characters that were way overpowered if you
Hmm.
played when it first came out that they kind of nerfed later. So you can take advantage of that, but I just get really frustrated with I think I always reference Screen Rant on the show for some reason. Screen Rant did a thing about how if video games were like a puzzle, would you want to buy a puzzle but like 30 of the pieces are missing when you first buy it? And like, oh, we'll
Hmm.
give you these puzzle pieces later.
Right.
Like it's so frustrating with games like that. So a lot of times I like to wait. So by the time I played Mass Effect 3, I mean they were still supporting multiplayer, but you basically had to play multiplayer to increase your galactic readiness for that game. It
Huh.
was like your galactic readiness and your war assets that determined your ending. And if your Shepard could possibly live and like, how good your ending was basically was based on all that. But I just refused to play multiplayer anyway. It was still being supported, but a lot of times, like I've played multiplayer games, but a lot of these RPGs, I'm just being introverted and being solo. I didn't really want to play
Hmm.
the multiplayer to increase my galactic readiness. So the only way I could get a good ending was through building up war assets. And they come from decisions that you made in the game, basically. And this was part of like the urgency of my character. She was just so running herself to the end of her fuse, like so desperate to save the universe that, she'd often make the bad decision if it meant more points. Like if you can torture information out of someone that will give you more war assets, I would take it. So I knew I needed every war asset I could possibly get, because my galactic readiness was never going to raise above what it already was before.
Mm.
So like a lot of my decisions were based on that. I even remember, sadly, I had to disappoint Tally. There's one decision you can make where you either search the wreckage after a battle for Korean survivors, or you search it for technology. And if you get the technology, you get like, 10 or 25 war assets or something. You don't get it if you save the people. So Tally was all pissed at me and didn't come to my birthday party or whatever. That that I didn't save the Koreans, that I saved the technology. And I was just kind of like, well, you know what? That's the decision I had to make based on how I played the game, and that built into my headcanon and built into it. And that's one thing that I know is definitely part of the Legendary Edition. Is, again, they kind of made it easier. There's no multiplayer for the third game here.
Right.
Or anything like that. So if you're playing the Legendary Edition, it's easier to get the good ending.
I forgot that about. I don't remember really playing the multiplayer either. Maybe I tried it once. And I don't. That's better than a Legendary Edition. I don't think you should have to play multiplayer to help you get a better ending, right? These games. I mean, if you like multiplayer, that's awesome. But these games are supposed to be one-player RPGs, right? Like at their core. So that's kind of a bummer that they did that.
Yeah, so I mean, look, again, I don't want to make this sound like it's the shit on the Legendary Edition video. So yeah, no, that's one change that I would probably definitely support. I mean, for my own personal, the way I built it, like, it worked into how I played the game anyway. My Shepherd was always very like type A, get the job done at any cost. So that worked with how I played it. But to have to do the multiplayer to get those points basically is a little suspect. And so for someone playing it for the first time or replaying it, it is nice that you don't have to worry about that, and you can still get the best possible ending without going above and beyond, the single player RPG aspects.
Yeah. So what ending did you do?
So me, I ended up choosing the red ending. I chose Destroy. And look, I'm not gonna lie, it was a tough choice. I'm very close to Edie and Joker, and Edie and Joker get together by the end of it. I was really loyal, like my Geth companion in the second one. Like, I had a lot of technology-based friends who, I really liked, who I knew were going to suffer from doing this. And it was still the choice to me, though, to make was, and I'm going to talk about the ending in general a little bit, but, when I got to that point, I was like, look, you gave me a big red button that says kill the Reapers. Kill Reapers is what I came here to do. If you're going to give me a big red button to press that kills all the Reapers and lets me make it home to my love interest on time, clock out, make it home on time, good. That's what I came here to do. And so, I mean, personally for me, I had no problem with that. I was like, okay, you gave me a choice I'm looking for. But to defend the ending a little bit in general, as we saw with what happened with Andromeda and trying to continue Mass Effect, they shot themselves in the foot by giving us so many choices. People say they don't give you enough choice, that it's not built on your character enough, what you choose. But I mean, these three endings are pretty drastically different. And so when it comes to, they're already talking about, there's already a teaser out for, a true, like, Mass Effect 4, I guess, like continuing in the Milky Way galaxy. How they're going to continue that, I've got no idea. 'Cause, there's such three drastically different endings.
That's
it's like with Coder. You couldn't really continue Coder because, did you go Jedi? Did you go Sith? Kind of hard to make a sequel then. It has to be like, based in the same universe but with a different character or something else. So I thought it was actually kind of brave, number one, to give you so many drastically different choices to end a series like that and kind of shoot yourself in the foot for a sequel. But I also thought that I just thought it was creative. A lot of games, I think what the people want is, like I said, kill the bad guy, clock out, get home to your love interest, the hero of the day, win the game. Like, a lot of games are going to come down to that, beat the bad guy, go home. Or some games have downer endings, or they've moved away from good and bad lately. There's a lot of, like, factional type endings. Like, depending on who you're friends with, these people do better than those people or something like that. There's a lot of endings that work out like that. But getting back to your point of it being art, definitely in our culture, there's this line between art and a product, basically. Because art has to be sold, especially nowadays, like, it has to sell. But, trying to make it a customer service thing, make everyone happy, like you said, is not necessarily good for art. So here they said, you know what, there's no easy choices. You can't just, beat the bad guy and go home. There's going to be three drastically different choices, and they're all going to come with some consequences. And so it's not going to be as simple as just beat the game and go home. And I like that about the ending.
I do too. So you're saying with the way they changed the endings, those consequences are still there. They just kind of extended the epilogue.
More or less, yeah. Like it's still the same thing. Like they didn't make any new endings. It's still basically blue,
Oh,
green, or red.
so
Either
that's totally different.
destroy, confirm.
I thought they had actually created like a totally fourth, nice, great ending or something. To make people happy. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Then that's not so bad.
Yeah, so it's not again like the only real like fourth ending is that you can try and shoot the kid, the little
Mm.
the avatar there, and if you try and shoot it, you die. That's the only like other thing they kind of add. Other than that, yeah, it's just more or less extended epilogue, trying to make people feel like the end of Animal House, get to find out what happens to everybody.
Mm.
They give you a little bit more of that
Yeah.
in the end. There is really what they did.
I will say, since you mentioned, as another thing, I have a lot of things different than a lot of people out there. I actually thought, so first off, I really like Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm one of those people who defend it. Although interesting nowadays, I'm seeing in magazines, video game magazines, there's kind of like a renaissance almost like, oh, maybe Andromeda was actually a good game. Yeah, no kidding. I told you that like when it first came out. So anyway, but I think it was, sorry. I think it was actually smart though to, like you said, because of that, switch it to a different galaxy. I think it was actually I think it was a pretty good move to say we're going to go to a totally different galaxy, new characters, new storyline, with some references to Shepard, right, and other stuff. But I really liked, yeah, man. I was digging my Ryder character, and I mean, Fem Ryder doesn't sound as good as Fem Shep, but whatever.
it doesn't roll off the tongue.
Doesn't roll off the tongue at all. I'm gonna come with some, maybe that was a problem. But yeah, I don't know. Like I never really got people's crazy like hate that they spewed onto that game, um, and I'm actually really pissed because there's two more games I'm never gonna play.
Yeah.
That was gonna be a trilogy, and that trilogy ended because of all that. And now, like you said, they're trying to go back to the Milky Way, right? So I don't know. That's like whatever. I mean, I don't know, man. Like it annoys me when just a certain faction gets so vocal online that it creates like a decision making in companies, which I think it shouldn't. Now, you're right. Okay, so bottom line is generally dollars makes decision making in these situations, right? And how much they sell. But I would have to look it up. I don't know. I mean, was it really that bad? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it was Mass Effect. Must have sold pretty decently, right? Anyway, unless because the native feedback was enough to like hurt the sales. I don't know. I don't know what the figures are on those, but
Well, like you said, the internet can be brutal. I mean,
yeah.
some of Andromeda was definitely low hanging fruit. Like some of those really bad facial animations and stuff that came up early on. Like it was just so easy to memeify the living heck out of that. But I can see where all that came from. No, but I'm with you, man. I enjoyed Andromeda more or less because there's not that many games that tick all the boxes. Like, let you at least do your first name of your character. Let you create the look of them. Let you choose the dialogue options. Let you choose your factions you're friendly with. And give you a romance option. That's missing from a lot of RPGs. Like, that's one thing you can always count on for almost any BioWare game. It's almost like that old line about any slice of pizza is still a slice of pizza. Like, there's very few games that are going to tick all those boxes. So I really enjoyed Andromeda for that. And some of the things that maybe weren't up to snuff about it, I was able to look past, especially by the time that I got around to playing it. And actually, I really enjoyed that game a lot too. The REM tech there was really fun to chase down. My romance with PB was really fun. I did choose a male character for that one, just
Oh,
kind of switch it up a
interesting.
little bit. Yep, just to switch it up, just for kicks. And I think again, it was just when I first started looking at the game, like looking at the cover of the box, looking at the initial descriptions, like something just said, okay, maybe choose a male one for this. And yeah, so I enjoyed the
Sure.
living heck out of the game. It had all the right RPG mechanics, both as far as how the game works and story wise. Like it was good for me, and I would have loved to see them improve on maybe some of the shortcomings in the second one or the third one, and give us another trilogy. So I'm with you. It's a shame that it the feedback got that loud, that bad, that quick that it's not going to happen. Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah. And that's the thing though, right? The first Mass Effect, they made improvements into 2 and 3, right? So like why wouldn't you expect this to follow the same pattern? Um, I think because they made 3, people expected this to be like this revolutionary perfect game. It's not. No game is. Really. Um, I will say though, I like in that one that like it wasn't either male ship or fem ship. Like if you were female or male, the other character was still in it. It was your brother, it was
Yeah,
your sibling, your twin,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That was cool, I thought. And it's actually the only RPG where I've ever chosen the default character look.
Oh,
Like I always create my own, but there's something when the female writer, I said like, fuck, I love that. I love this female writer, the way she looks. I'm not going to make a damn change. I'm just going to, I've never done that. Never. Like, I don't know. There's just something that spoke to me about her. Um, so yeah.
no, I love it, man. Rock the
Yeah.
fuck on. Yeah, like, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If your
Yeah.
first impression is that good,
Yeah.
then yeah, no, go with it. No, that's the shit. So bringing this back around, then I would maybe choose a different ending. I mean, look, I was happy with my ending. Just let me kill the Reapers, great. That's what I came here to do. Make it own to my love interest. There's consequences, but hey, that's life. The control ending though did kind of appeal to me. Partially because biggest thing about the second game that I love so much is actually I really like Cerberus. I know Cerberus kind of comes off as like they're sort of like the Section 31 or whatever
Mm.
of the Mass Effect
Yep.
universe, and obviously they're all human first and all that, so they're kind of painted as like racist and bad, but in some ways I kind of saw it as like being the next step for the Spectre. Like at least they were trying to pay attention to the Reaper invasion. The Council wouldn't want to take it seriously even after everything in the first game. But they're at least trying again. So it's like, look, I'm Shepard. I want to go where I can make a difference. So I was almost disappointed you couldn't continue with Cerberus going into the third game. But the point that I even bring up Cerberus is the elusive man. I always thought it was interesting how he seemed not more interested in controlling the Reapers. He was always trying to get a leg up. Like, what's the next advantage? And he didn't seem like more interested, at least not early on, like in actually controlling this. And I was like, well, look, what if we can use this to our advantage? And I was thinking that so early on that by the time it came to the end of the third game, I was like, I was right. You
Yeah.
can be in control of this.
Yeah.
If he would have maybe gone my route, he could have ascended and taken control of the Reapers. Who
Yeah.
knows what would have done for humanity? It would have been bad for the galaxy overall. Like, he was
Right.
clearly a bad guy. Like, not a good thing, but I almost felt like I was so happy to see that I was right. That, like, control was kind of an option. I almost wanted to take it. I really did, but I didn't want to take it just to prove a point.
Right.
Like, I was going to take the control ending and kill my character, not make it home to Garrus, just to be right.
Yeah. Well,
So I didn't want to
you're
choose.
true to your character. Yeah.
Exactly. I had to be true to my character. But if I played the whole game a different way and, maybe chose some different origins or saved different characters and had different interactions, the whole domino effect that carried on from there, I could see if I was going to replay it, I probably would have to make different choices because I don't think it'd be as much as I love the game. It's not like rewatching a movie. It's 180 hours of your life going through again, cycling through your armor, upgrading weapons, and that stuff is fun. But like you've done it already. So if I was going to do it again, I would probably have to make some different choices. And that's the one I would maybe consider is, making the kind of choices that lead me along the way to where I say, you know what, I'm willing to sacrifice myself, or at least sacrifice my human form. You're not dead. Your just conscience goes up there. So maybe I could find a way to justify where I choose the control ending.
Cool.
Okay, so final thoughts on the whole idea of replaying Mass Effect. Jeff, like you mentioned, you had started to replay the Legendary Edition a little bit. So what do you think overall? Is it going to be worth it to you? You're going to do anything different? Play it the same way? What do you think you're going to get out of it?
So, I mean, I kind of hate to say I probably will not play through it. I mean, who knows? I might go back at some point, but part of the problem is, right, there's a couple other games right now that I'm loving that are new stories to me, right? So it was like, well, I'm so excited about these ones because I haven't played them before, right? So like, and I only have time to I don't have time to play a lot of video games at once. So so unfortunately, probably not, which is too bad because it's interesting. Again, I thought if anything was going to do with Mass Effect, but I think this just shows me, nope, I just don't really want to replay games once I've played them, right? Once I finish them. Even though as great as Mass Effect is, and it's like one of my all-time favorite, if not my favorite series. Now that doesn't mean other people. I've lots of other people out there, I'm sure will love it. They love replaying games, and I think they'll have a great time with this one. Again, it's a really well-made addition, I think, and so certainly I believe it was worth them to do that. Also, kind of unfortunately, with some of the hits BioWare had taken with Andromeda, which I don't think they deserve, and then with Anthem. which is was kind of unfortunately a very failed thing they were trying to do differently with games. I think they needed something right that everyone loved, and to kind of get them back in the people almost mostly right. Almost I think every positive stuff about Legendary Edition. Even if I'm not going to totally play it, I still recognize that it's a fantastic addition. All three games together, best graphics you're going to see of it. So certainly well worth the price, particularly if you haven't played it ever.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. The edition looks pretty darn good. For the most part, the changes, similar or whatever, but it's not like they really like ruined the game or anything like that. Again, this is definitely not shit on Legendary Edition episode. Really the heart of this was more about, okay, with the Legendary Edition out, is it worth it to replay Mass Effect, or even if it weren't for the Legendary Edition, just would you replay the game in general? And for me, honestly, I did. When the Legendary Edition came out, just for kind of shits and giggles, I just loaded up my old Xbox 360 and I played like maybe an hour of the first Mass Effect again.
From the
There's an
beginning?
option, yeah, from the beginning. There's a fun little thing they have in the first one where you can like replay with all your stats and your gear and such.
Oh
Just
yeah.
you just kind of replay your career, and I
But
got
is that
about
like is the difficulty ramped up?
no, it's still up to you. It's up
Okay.
to you to choose like what difficulty you want it to be on.
But I mean, are your stats like all at the end game stats? Like you're really powerful?
Yeah, yeah, you're still like a well-oiled machine. Like you've got I think you have to like respect them a little bit, but like
Okay,
you've
yeah.
got your gear, you're all leveled up, and you can like keep going even levels. I think there was like a level cap at some point.
Okay.
Like you can go above that now. You basically just replay the game, but like with everything you had already. So like you basically can blow through the fights and
Well,
just
that's what
kind
I
of like
wanted to know. Like, are the fights still like really easy? I mean, easy characters at that point then, because you're so high level.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
pretty high level. You got all your stuff. You're just kind of like going through the motions again, which I kind of.
Is that how
It's
you did it?
almost
Is that when you did that hour? Is that how you did it? Did you use your like high level character?
yeah. I just like re-geared all my stuff, and picked up. You still have to kind of like unlock certain things. It's like I don't think you have like every biotic ability right away. Like you still have to progress through the game, but like they're already there. They're already earned. You're more or less just doing the missions and I guess potentially mining the resources again. I didn't get quite far enough to see how that works and how it affects your ending. But
Hmm.
even within that first hour, I got to the point where like, now go, and it was like something on the Citadel, like take 24 pictures, or like plant 24 bugs for this guy, or find 24 things. I was like, oh god, here we go again. And it didn't have that sense of urgency having already been done. It's not like it erases my canon to do it. If I play it differently another way, choose a different ship, whatever, like I still did that story. I still told that story. I did it that way, like. But again, just that sense of urgency is lost. You're just kind of playing it for kicks or something, I guess, and that's not the same as really being like, I've got to stop them, got to stop the Reapers. I've got to do this. So I don't think I'm really going to get into it quite that much, yes, but I'm still really open to being convinced. So please leave a comment. Anyone
Yeah,
try and
convince
talk me
both of
into
us.
playing this? Yes.
Hey, I forgot to ask you, what were you like, adept or soldier? Like, what did you choose?
Oh yeah. So the Vanguard for me, I was like a good
Oh, I
high
was
rank
Yeah,
officer. I think.
the soldier slash biotic, right?
Yeah. So you
I
get
was
a little bit
Vanguard
of both.
too. Yeah, good
Oh,
choice.
yes, right on, man. Cheers
I
to
love
that.
those biotic powers.
Hmm. Yeah, it's the same way for me in any game. If there's some kind of magic or special ability you can possibly have, I can't lock myself out of it. Like I've got to be able to play with that. But I also
Yeah.
sometimes just really like. I think again, this is part of. I don't know. Like I love a good shooter. I can play a good video game, but there's a part of me that just wants to get to the story. It's like when it comes to like the fights and stuff. I'm like, okay, if I can play like a shotgun type character, like you just jump into the fray, kill everyone off as quick as possible. I like to have that option too, so I can just get the fight over with and get back to the talking.
Hmm. Yep.
Which is maybe not how everyone looks at it, but
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
always just trying to get to the
I agree.
story.
That's me though, man. Right? I love. I want to get the story, and I want to do all those character interactions, right? Like on the ship and talking to people and finding out their history and form relationships. That was my favorite thing.
Yeah, man. So with that being said, then if we're not really necessarily too gung ho about replaying the Legendary Edition, or just Mass Effect in general, like you said, there's a lot of other things you can do with your time. What kind of games are you playing or thinking about playing?
So there's two games I've been playing recently, um, and so another Bioware game, Jade Empire, which I think you have high remembrances of, right? Or you like that game a lot. I believe you're one of the people I think who were promoting that to me. Um, Again, well, you know what? Here's the thing, obviously, because I'm sure a lot of these people have not seen Super Geeked Up, so I'll tell quickly the story here. Um, I wanted to play Jade Empire back in the day, so I went to go buy the GameStop to buy a used Xbox because I had PlayStations at the time, plays whatever two or I don't know whatever it was. I think two. Um, and the guy was like, "Hey, you should get an Xbox 360 because there's a game called Mass Effect coming out, and then you can play Jade Empire and you can play Mass Effect, and it's by BioWare, the same company." And I was like, "That sounds great. I'm going to get a 360." So that's why I bought 360 because Mass Effect was coming out. um, but anyway, yeah. So I only played a little bit of Jade Empire then. I don't know why. Maybe Mass Effect came out. Maybe that's why. I don't know. And I switched to that. But I started, I went back to the beginning and I'm replaying it, and I don't really remember much, or I didn't really get very far probably before. But I'm loving it. Like, this is amazing. And even though this game is quite old, graphically standard, like but all the way back to original Xbox, I actually think the graphics hold up pretty damn well. Like, usually I can't go back and play a game that's that old. I'm like, oh, gross, these graphics compared to like modern stuff. But I think they look great, and the story's great. Characters are great. It's kung fu, which I love. I love martial arts films and the whole Chinese culture that they're based it off of. So yeah, I was loving that. But then unfortunately, I stopped playing that because Tales of Arise came out like a week or two ago, which is the latest in the Tales series, which I never really got into. But this game's fucking awesome. Like, this is a great JRPG. But it has a very dynamic, like one of the best action, like combat systems I've seen in a JRPG. Very dynamic and fast paced, but also great story and great characters too. Like with Mass Effect, right? And or BioWare games. Like, I really care about these characters that they have here, and a fantastic anime style to it as well. So Tales of Arise. I'm definitely going to keep going back to, like, maybe I'll finish Tales first and I'll go back to Jade Empire. Um, and then a game I bought, which just came out, but I haven't had a chance to play yet, is Kena, spelled Kena, Bridge of Spirits, which is a new game by this indie company. And they compare it to like a Zelda-esque game. But it looks beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So that's kind of like what's on my horizon.
No, yeah, right
What
the
about you?
fuck on that. For me, bringing up, going back to Jade Empire, for me, it really all started video game wise with KOTOR. Is when I really got
Yep.
into, like, the Xbox games and stuff again. So like, I was like, okay, anything these people make, I'm down for.
Yeah.
Like
That got me into BioWare as well.
Obsidian
Yeah.
or BioWare. Yep. 'Cause I guess they had done the first one was kind of like a joint. It was like Obsidian and BioWare. It's like anything any of those two companies make, like, I'm at least interested in. So as soon as I was like, oh, Jade Empire, right on, let me try that. And that's another game really, like, it ticks all the boxes. Gives you everything you're looking for in an RPG. All different styles. Love that game. I'm glad you're finally getting around to playing it.
Yeah.
Um, I actually just wrapped up Terminator Resistance.
Oh, is that an old one? Like,
It's actually relatively new.
is it?
I think it just kind of went under the radar. It's kind of a small game. Like, if you go on Xbox or whatever and look at like how much it would cost, like, it's not a very expensive game. And I don't want to say you get what you pay for because it ain't a bad game, but you kind of see once you get into it. Like, it's like it's not too heavily RPG or whatever. It's not too, like, big or long of a game to begin with, all things considered. But in Terminator Resistance, you get to play a resistance fighter. You're fighting in the future war, so they've got, like, the blue, purple, darkened sky, the lasers, and the big shiny machines, and it really has like the feel of those future war flashbacks or
Hmm.
flash forwards, however you want to look at it. It's more or less just a shooter. You're
Okay.
running around in that world, shooting up Terminators and planting traps, and you get to make a couple little choices, like whether to be nice or be a jerk to certain people, but you're not really controlling the story or anything like that. But I know you're a really big Terminator fan,
Yeah.
and it's like, just
Okay. Cool.
that was a fun little game. So I just wrapped that up, and I've been getting into the Ascent.
Okay.
Pretty similar with the Ascent. The Ascent
Is
is more or less a shooter.
is that is that the cyberpunk feel one? The one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cyberpunk game.
Like isometric. Is
Yeah,
that it? Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like a top down.
Yeah.
It's like you got that weird camera angle, and you more or less just walk around shooting stuff. Like, again, mechanically wise, you can upgrade your character, upgrade your weapons, things like that. But there's no companions. There actually is a story, but you don't really control the story. Like, you don't make choices that make an impact on it. There's no real dialogue choices you make or anything like that. But it ticks some of the boxes. That's been pretty fun. But that's also kind of why I wanted to make this video, because I'm about to wrap up that game too. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what do I do next? And every time I finish a video game, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll play Legendary Edition.
There you go. Well, there, yeah, that's. Oh, damn, you just reminded me, and this is a game I think you got based off of my recommendation. But I gotta go back and finish. I gotta go finish Greedfall too. I never finished that game,
Oh, oh,
which is by
yeah.
a company called Spiders, which again is a smaller company, but the closest Bioware game I've seen since like it's like screams everything Bioware basically, like in terms of choices, right? And like romance. What? Yeah, I don't actually. Can you romance? I don't even remember in Greedfall.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can, right? Yeah. Um, but yeah, but cool thing is it's set like in this, kind of 17th century European feel. I want to say almost like piratey type, Renaissance-y feel, in the fantasy land, which I haven't really seen in an RPG like before that I can remember. So yeah, if anybody is looking for Bioware stuff, if you're watching this video, you probably like Bioware. Greedfall is a great game.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated that recommendation. Not only did I enjoy the heck out of Greedfall, that was a really fun game. And yeah, it was like a fantasy colonial type of game, which I was almost borderline surprised they made nowadays. Everything colonial is, oh man, dicey area maybe. I enjoyed the heck out of the game, and I've actually really liked all the Spiders games. I played one of them like a long time ago, and then kind of forgot about the company. But then after you reminded me about Greedfall, I went back and played. I played Mars Warlogs, and
Okay.
then the follow up, the Technomancer.
I've heard Technomancer, yeah.
Yeah, they were both basically sci-fi RPGs. Again, it's a little smaller. So I think in all brutal honesty, I think Mars Warlogs is like a 20, 30 hour games tops, something like that. Like, not a huge investment. Technomancer, much more, not much more than that, but definitely two games that ticked all the boxes and were a lot of fun as far as, getting all those aspects and feeling, BioWare-ish. And yeah, if you enjoyed that, I would endorse pretty much anything by Spiders. I'd say they're pretty much all nerd certified there.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. Nice to get the nerd certification there, right, of approval.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, wrapping this up, then, last little nerd certified thing I want to do. Like I mentioned at the top of the video here, Jeff, the links to everything that you create is down below. But I want you to tell me a little bit more about like what we're going to see when we click on those links.
Sure. And thank you, by the way. When you did that intro, the things I was like, I just need you to come around and introduce all my shows for me because like that was perfect. Um, Super Geeked Up is the weekly show we do. It's a mix of geeky chat and improv comedy, kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, as you mentioned. And we do that every Wednesday, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. But we have an audience, we have a chat, which Scorpio is almost always in, and a lot of awesome people. And we use their comments, obviously, throughout the show to help us do the games. It's just a ton of fun. Like the most supportive, best people on the internet, as far as I'm concerned, are there as part of our community. And we do that at cons as well. Like we just did a Dragon Con recently. And Super Knocked Up. So what I'm excited about that is because I have a new format for that. It was 2 seasons of a web series, which you can see on the same YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/supergeekedup. But now I release it as a Kindle Vella series. Vella's pretty new. A lot of people don't know about it yet, but it's this kind of really short episodic serialized storytelling that Amazon is doing. So you can kind of get these in short bites, the story. So I'm telling Super Knocked Up that way, starting from the beginning, putting some stuff in that I couldn't put in the web series because of cost reasons. And I'm also, though, going to continue it beyond to tell the full story, which I did not get to do in the web series. So that's good. I'm going to finally get to tell a story. And if you go to supergeekedup.com, and I'll send you a direct link as well, maybe you can put in the thing. But it's right on the homepage of supergeekedup.com, a link to the Vella series. And good news is you can read the first 3 for free. And then Amazon will give you 200 free tokens if you're new to Vella. So you can read everything for free right now. That's up there. There's 9 episodes up there. Thank you again, by the way, for reading for the review. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, so I've been that, and for anyone who cares, like I've been reviewing your stuff like almost since I first got into like writing for comic book websites and doing, my podcast, my radio network that I worked for a while. My new like almost everything I've ever done, I've probably reviewed something if you're on at some point. The Super Knocked Up series, if anyone hasn't seen it, look, Super Knocked Up. I'll still never forget when I first wrote for that one comic book website. I was kind of like in their like bullpen, so to speak. And like, okay, newbies, we've got like 100 creator-owned submissions here. We've got web series, comic books, whatever. Like everyone just dive into the bin, pick something out, and start reviewing. Earn your keep, so to speak, and earn you like $30 a week. I think they made us. But anyway, but anyway, so I saw this one. It was like Super Knocked Up, and I was like, if that's exactly what it sounds like, this is going to be fun.
All right, wow, that's awesome. I didn't know you had picked it out of so many different ones.
Yep. And so to borrow an old British expression, it does what it says on the tin. If you're kind of thinking about like Super Bad or like what was the other one? Super Bad and or was this called Knocked Up? The other movie?
There was a movie just called Knocked Up with Katherine Heigl and what's this? Seth Rogen, I think, right?
Yeah. So like if you're just thinking like, oh, this sounds like a zany kind of sex comedy, but with superheroes, more or less what Super Knocked Up was, like exactly as advertised, live action, great cast. No, I had a lot of fun with your show, and it's really neat that you're continuing it almost the same way Smallville got continued as a comic book after the show ended. Now you're kind of continuing the story, so we can find out what happened to everybody, via those Kindle novellas, which we'll definitely get the link down there too. And so far, yeah, they haven't cost a penny. They'll
Yeah.
give you all these tokens when you first sign up. I think I'm up to like the 9th chapter now. Haven't paid a thing yet. Get to find out what happens in the story. Yeah, so if you enjoy the web series, that ends up being very, very worth it.
Yes. And by the way, though, folks, even though you don't have to pay, that's good for you. It's also good for me because when you use those tokens, Amazon gives authors money, so that's great for everybody.
Yeah, so it still works out for you
Yeah.
in the web. But yeah, I guess they're trying to build up the whole like this new thing of it. But no, so that's great. That's great. But definitely, Super Geeked Up, the weekly show has been. I mean, that kind of spun out of that, if I remember correctly. It was
It
kind of
did.
like promoting the web series more or less, but it kind of
It was.
evolved into its own creature.
100% did. It was to promote season 2, and then it totally became its own, like, I mean, it was more or less just a chat thing, but then it became this whole like improv comedy thing that we started to take around to festivals and do it on stage and stuff. And yeah, it's been awesome. And we've done, I don't know, what is it, like 330 some odd episodes now. So we've been doing it a long time. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and like you said, you've even taken it to cons at this point. You've gone really, really, probably even farther than you thought you might have with it when you first started doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But the main selling point on Super Geeked Up here is just how fun and positive that show is. Like, it's just a group of people hanging out in the chat, just geeking out and talking about, like, their favorite geek this or favorite geek that. There's no gatekeeping. I mean, look, it's like we won't bust each other's balls. Have some fun. Like, if you think something sucks, say it sucks. But like, it's just all good, clean fun on Super Geeked Up there.
Absolutely. Um, I mean, yeah, sometimes our NC at 17 rated fun, just so people know.
Yep.
But yes, but it's all good, very, very positive, supportive. Everybody's having a good time about talking about geeky stuff we love.
Yeah, the episode's normally you and then Francis, your co-host, and every once in a while you usually have like some kind of a third like guest co-host who comes on. You've gotten some pretty fun celebrities on the show
Yeah.
as well. Who are some of your favorites?
Well, actually, well, outside of you, of course, who've been on a couple times.
Thank you.
You were on the 300th episode, which was a huge episode. That's actually that's probably the episode I've been the most proud of, to be honest with you. I'm really happy with how that came out. Thank you for coming on again. Anyway, but last week we had sorry, I'm not sure exactly when this is going to air, but recently we had Gigi Edgley on, who is Chiana in Farscape. I was actually on a panel with her at DragonCon. That's how I met her, and she was like the nicest person ever. So she came on. I really liked having Nana Visitor on because Deep Space Nine is my favorite show of all time, and she played Major Kira. For those of you who may not be DS9 fans, she was just so delightful. I had met her at a Star Trek con that I was hoping to run, and I talked to her there, and she was so nice, and she was super fun. So, I mean, those are two like maybe more known people that come off the top of my head. But honestly, they don't have to be celebrities, right? Like I have the most fun, which is like people, like right, like just people like you and other creatives who are doing shows or who are writing a comic book or something, right, or whatever they're doing, just to come on to geek out with. Like, we have fun with pretty much everybody, right? Like, I've never had I said this on the panel. I did a panel about like doing shows like this, and I was like, 330 something shows, never had a jerk on the show, like, which is pretty amazing. Um, yeah, I mean, those are a couple of ones, but like, there's been so many great and fun times.
And so bringing this all full circle one more time, that I remember one of my favorite guests that you've had on, and I really apologize that I don't remember his name right off the top of my head, but he had worked on a lot of the Disney Pixar type stuff, and he worked on Wreck-It Ralph in particular, and he mentioned that Calhoun was actually based on Femship, like the
Oh,
Calhoun character from Wreck-It Ralph was
oh,
actually
yes,
kind of
yes, yes, yes,
based on.
yes. Well, really, I was wondering. That's interesting. It's the one that the Felix, right, kind of has a romance with.
The one that fixes
Played
Felix
by
is the
I'm
romance song.
forgetting the actress's name, but she was from Glee and stuff. That's interesting. I didn't realize that as much when I first saw Wreck-It Ralph, which I love. I thought it was more of like maybe a Gears of War, Halo
Oh,
kind of
okay.
inspired thing. But that's even cooler. That is Friendship. I wish
Yeah,
I could remember his name as well. We were talking about it. I can't right now pull it off my top of my head.
yeah, I probably owe him the link in the chat below too, just for not knowing. This was a show prep thing. Like, I didn't actually had meant to bring that up, but just when we got to talking, it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was one of the funnest things that I learned on your show, was when you had that guy, and he confirmed. Cause I always thought, I was like, oh, I feel like this is a little fem-sheppy, and then he confirmed it based on my comment in the chat that he responded to, and
Oh, nice.
that
Nice.
was just kind of highlighting like how fun the show can be, like some of the little things
Oh,
that come
wait.
up.
Was it?
Was it Ralph something?
Oh, I don't know if you were talking about. Oh my God, I hate this when I freaking had a brain fart. Um, the guy I'm thinking of is somebody else. I'm not sure if this is you're thinking, but he does a lot of animation stuff, and I don't. But he's worked for like DreamWorks. Is that the guy you're talking about?
Yeah, probably DreamWorks then.
Maybe. If you're, it's the guy I'm thinking you may be talking about. It is Matt Schiavone.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was it. Thank you. Yeah.
He's I think that's who you're talking about. Yeah, he's been on a few times. Oh, he's great. He's awesome. He always usually he's in like his office and he has all this amazing stuff he can show us, like from his office, like from the animation stuff.
Oh yeah, like the fun cell artwork,
Yeah,
on
the
his
one that he has
back
behind
walls and stuff.
his behind his wall. Yeah, that's Matt. That's Matt Schiavone.
Yeah, he's always got fun toys to show off whenever
Yeah.
he comes on. But yeah, so I just want to bring that full circle one last time. So look, everyone who's made it this far into the video, thank you again so much for taking this like walk down Mass Effect lane with us again. I always encourage comments on the videos, but yeah, thank you for giving me a chance also and gush about my guest co-host and talk about everything that he did. Thanks for clicking on another certified video and making yourselves nerd certified. Thanks for clicking and take care.
My favorite show on the Citadel.
Thank you for that.